Hi, this is Levi and Ryan with the Young Patriots Association. Today we're going to be talking about the Hawaii false alarm.
False alarm or insert conspiracy theory here.
Oh, yeah.
So what ended up happening was this is what was allegedly reported by the actual HIEMA agency, the one that had the mishap.
The Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, which is like their state version of FEMA.
Yeah,
which every state has.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
That's where the actual mishap happened. So they're the ones who took fault and blame for it openly. They stated it and everything. They have a full report out on it now. But what happened was at 8:05, they were having routine tests of the internal system during a shift change. Or it was either during or after a shift change. They didn't specify. I guess when they changed shifts, they would do an internal systems check. And this time, they allegedly pressed the wrong buttons, or I'm not sure how their thing works, but they did something wrong in the system that actively sent out a legitimate warning. Instead of internal test, it actually sent out the warning systems over TV, airwaves, and to cell phones. It mass everything. Everything was told. And then 8:07, or 8:07 is when the actual test happened. That was fuck.
That was when the actual alarm was triggered.
8:13, they issued a false alarm tweet. Okay, so this is where they were having some issues. They tweeted it. It wasn't until 8:45 that they actually got FEMA's permission to do a legitimate civil emergency message, to send that out over TV and audio waves, airwaves.
Which is essentially, they had to get permission to send out a text in the exact same format that the original text was sent.
So they had already sent out information. What is that? I can't do that math right now. Like no more than 10 minutes later that it was a false alarm, but the only platform they had to do it over was Twitter and Facebook. So it didn't go anywhere.
And how many people are monitoring their state's FEMA Twitter? Especially when you think of nukes inbound.
You're probably like talking to your loved ones because it's the last thing they'll ever hear.
Exactly.
So that's the reason it took so long for them to actually get the information out. The information was put out, it just wasn't put out publicly enough where people would be looking.
So pretty much from start to finish of the incident, about 40 minutes transpired, and a lot can happen in 40 minutes. So what all can we take from this? So obviously it was the fault of the Hawaiian state government. Allegedly, they claim it's their fault, and I'm all for keeping the government accountable. So if they're going to come out and say that, oh hey, we're at fault, then I don't want to get super conspiracy theory about it, but it's kind of sketchy. So let's talk about the people. The civilians, instantly mass panic. People were running off beaches, trying to get into shelter, trying to get out of the city. People going 100 miles an hour on inner city roads and running stop signs and red lights. People were climbing into sewer systems through manholes. An amazing part about this is that even with the threat of a ballistic missile, people were still filming with their phones. People were just like, oh, world star, and just turn their phones on. Like, dude, get out of there. If you have the chance to escape, especially with a warning like that, do your best to leave.
I actually have an opinion as to why that might have happened. I think because they knew where they were, they kind of felt hopeless and helpless. Like, the only thing I can do is try and get out of the area, or get down, basically, cover my head and hope I don't die. I think they kind of just didn't care at that point. They were like, well, I'm already doing as much as I can do, and they pulled their phones out. But that is kind of ridiculous. Like, pictures and stuff all over the internet of people trying to crawl into manholes. Who was holding that camera?
A lot of civilian businesses, like hotels, they were telling people to stay where they were. When the government or a civilian business is telling people to stay where you are when there's a serious threat, it is not for your safety. It's to keep people calm and to keep panic from happening. They did the exact same thing in 9/11. When the first plane hit, they broadcasted over the PA system telling people, stay where you are, don't panic, and then, another plane hit. And then they fell down, so. Think for yourselves, don't take orders from people. Just do what you can to ensure your survival. Let's see.
Yeah, because those messages, like he said, they're not for your safety. They're for public. It's to make sure the government doesn't lose control of the public.
Exactly.
It's so that everyone tries to stay as calm as possible, when really the best thing for you sometimes is to run like hell.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, the government cares about power. They don't care about your life, essentially. So, I mean, if a couple hundred people have to die for them to keep control, they're going to keep it. Let's see. That's pretty much it. Oh, airways got blocked almost instantly. Nobody was making phone calls after the first minute or two. So if you are trying to get in contact with people via phone when a mass emergency happens like this, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to get in contact. So find alternative ways to get in contact with people, your loved ones, etc., to get them, to inform them, or to ensure that they know what's going on, and to tell them how to get out of that situation.
Yeah, you need to make a phone call within the first 15 to 30 seconds, or you're not going to get one of the few slots on the radio towers that ping that shit around.
And just how like families have plans for like fires and stuff, like you need to have a similar plan, like, oh hey, if this happens, go here. Or even if it's just one plan that kind of amasses everything from like an earthquake to a hurricane, a tsunami, or a nuke from another country, at least your family will know, and they might not survive, but at least everyone can try to get back together. Because I know my family's spread out all over the place, so it would be very difficult to get everyone in the same place, especially if the phone lines are blocked up.
Yeah, if you can't communicate, it's a whole lot harder. At least if they already know where they should be trying to get to, then they won't have to communicate. Cut out an entire portion of that.
Yeah.
Which is really the hardest portion. I mean, we've been around on this earth for, forever now, and we just now have semi-efficient communication. So when all this shit reverts back to how it used to be, when anything goes wrong, power goes down, it's not going to be there. And this generation, especially, even the ones before us, didn't know how to deal with that. So,
all right. So in this situation, what I would do, if the opportunity arose, I would try to get out of urban areas. Granted, that's not always possible, and when it's not possible, find the best cover you can. Get low, get in basements, get in sewers. That will increase your survival rate, but you never know how weapons like these are going to actually hit. I mean,
plus it depends. Like with Hawaii, you don't have anywhere to go. You can't just leave the island. What are you going to do? Swim to America? It's not going to work. So in that situation, the only thing you could have done was get as low as you can and hope whatever you're underneath doesn't crumble on top of you. Whereas if you live in the outskirts of a major city, the best idea might be, well, the warning said we have 10 minutes till touchdown, get in a car. 10 minutes of driving the opposite way of the major population hub could be the difference between you dying in a heat blast and you dying of radiation 6 months later, or you surviving.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like look at it situationally. Sometimes it is better to run, sometimes keep your head down.
It is a good thing this happened in Hawaii, because if this happened in Georgia, where we're at, every person would have panicked and there would be a lot of dead people, because people are very, very survival oriented, and several people would get killed for a fucking false alarm. That's ridiculous. I'm surprised. I don't know if anyone was killed or not, but if not, I'd be very surprised, because people lose their minds. They don't care about everyone else. They just care about themselves, which makes sense. But this is a terrible, terrible mistake that could have been deadly, just for someone to accidentally hit the wrong button doing a test. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if this happened where we live, I mean, within minutes, my whole family would be in vehicles, if that was the most proper way to do it, on the way to our bug out location. And I mean, people get super heated in situations like this. Say there's a car accident along the way. Now these people feel like their life has been put in danger because the person that crashed into them or whatever, and everyone is armed. Well, depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
The chances that people are armed would be a lot more likely. That's going to create a dangerous situation. If that happened here, there would probably be a lot of people unnecessarily killed or injured.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to our next point. What is your ROE for when something like this happens?
Yeah.
Are you prepared for an hour and a half later to get a text message on your phone that says, just kidding, go back home, everything's fine?
All the super like John Wayne preppers out there, or even John Wayne civilians, are like, yeah, if the apocalypse happens, I'm gonna go start stealing people's supplies and I'll kill them if I have to. Okay, well, 2 hours later, you've stolen a car, you've shot somebody's poor wife, and now you're getting out of the state, and now the government sends you a text like, oh, hey, false alarm. You're gonna go to prison, which it's a shitty situation, because yes, it's the government's fault, but you should not you should have a rules of engagement. Unless people are being aggressive towards you, don't be aggressive towards people.
Don't count on the end of the world.
Yeah.
Don't assume that the government isn't. I mean, because if you think about it, the government has a lot of power. Don't assume that because one bump in the road or one bad thing happens, they're immediately going to fall apart, and now it's the Wild West and you can kill anyone you want with no repercussions. Yeah, like he was saying, if they're being aggressive with you, be a little bit more aggressive with them. That's it. Do not go over the board or overboard. If someone starts screaming at you, don't cap them.
Yeah.
That's how that text message will send you to jail.
Now, if someone's screaming at you and they have a gun in their hand, different story. Intent, opportunity, and ability. You still have to check those three things off. Laws still apply until it is 100% certain that the government does not exist anymore, or at least it has shrunken to the point where they only control small portions of the country.
If you are under someone's jurisdiction, still make sure you know and make sure you follow their rules.
Yep.
Otherwise, it could end very poorly for you because of something as simple as this guy pushed the wrong button.
Also, figure out good ways to gather intelligence, because, God knows, Murphy's Law still applies. Okay, now you lost your phone in the scuffle of trying to get out, and now you're 20 miles from home and starting your 12-day ruck march to whatever cabin you have that has a fallout bunker, and then that text goes through, and now you're in your fallout bunker for 12 years, and no one knows where you are. Find whether it's a radio or just anything of that sort. Have ways to gather intelligence on. Okay, did something actually happen? Am I okay to stay here? Is the government still a thing? Very important.
And a radio is probably the best way to do it because they can be hand cranked, they can be small, you can carry them with you in a bug out bag, stuff like that. But also, that is one of the first ways they get information out. They sent out a text message, like a mass, or not text message, whatever they did over the phone, whatever it was communication wise, they did over the phone to tell people it was a false alarm. That actually came after the TV and radio signals. So TV and radio are going to be the first ways they put information out, besides Twitter and Facebook. But maybe this is a valuable lesson too. Maybe you need to go and like or follow your state's emergency services.
Yeah.
Because that was the first way this information was put out. Yeah. As stupid as it sounds, that was the first way they did it. That might be, you have to conform to the way the world is working. You can't make the world conform to you. So maybe that's something you should consider. Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't think about any of this until it happened, and I was like, wow, I could have easily freaked out, ended up in jail, or been sitting in the middle of the woods for a couple weeks with no way of gathering information, and the world have just gone on turning like it normally did. And I would just be, sitting out there in the cold, miserable, eating some kind of horrible rations that I didn't need to be eating over a false alarm.
You got anything else to add?
Yeah, Hawaii. Get it together. Maybe implement some kind of safety check. Maybe another systems check or someone else's check and balance should be required to put information like that out over the airwaves to everyone. Because the stuff we're talking about, we can't force people to be properly prepared for it. So regardless of how much we know, people could still go out and do absolutely stupid stuff, and it would really be the government's fault, and that would suck for people to have to die, get injured, or spend 6 weeks out in the middle of nowhere for no reason.
Yep. So just use your head. I would say it would be safer to assume that obviously react how you would. Take every situation differently. If you get hit with that warning, obviously act like you would get out as best as you can, but also keep in mind the possibility that it could be a false alarm. Just use your brain. Don't make mistakes. Don't go Rambo just because you think that the government isn't a thing anymore, because chances are it's probably still a thing.
Yeah, that ought to cover it.
Mindset over everything. All right, guys, this has been the Young Patriot Association. You'll have a good day.